it's good to see you too. Well, I can't see you, but I can hear you. Okay, great. Yes, I can hear you.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, and thanks for being here. We are excited to have you all here today. It's hard to believe that we're here in week 14 already. So I'd like to start just by centering and focusing and being. I know that this time of the semester can be pretty busy for folks, and so just taking a moment to slow down and come to our full presence in this room, making sure phones and screens are away. You can put your 2 feet on the floor, and if it helps for you to put your hand on your heart and your belly. And in any case, however you're comfortable, you can take a couple of deep breaths. You're triggering that vagus nerve. I had a really interesting something happen to me that taught me even more about the vagus nerve. I had a very emotional dog bite incident on Saturday. And for that day, so I had the pain, the physical pain of the dog bites, but then I also was nauseous. And I didn't feel right. I was dizzy. And it really helped me to be aware of how it's all connected, right? How that vagus nerve, it's making me dizzy because that vagus nerve is up in my head, and my belly is upset. I'm queasy because that vagus nerve is connected here too. And so it was the emotional story, and then the pain, and then it was so interesting. And so I was really focused on how we really are this very complete being. And it was a very, as much as it was a hard experience, it was also a cool, teachable moment for me. And so as we take these deep breaths, we're stimulating that vagus nerve that brings us all into connection for ourselves as we connect our lungs and our hearts and our guts, and become completely all of our equipment. So thanks for being here. This is particularly, I think, important and enticing and opening today We have two guest speakers that are going to share with us this morning. Our topic for today is creativity and freedom. And this topic is absolutely one of my favorites. It is one of the classes that makes me feel most alive doing this semester because I feel as though creativity, what we can bring from within ourselves as individuals, is what's going to compel or what's going to propel us forward in the world that we live in now. So how can we as human beings are creative? Whether we see it or feel it or know it or not, it's part of that equipment. And so by bringing all of those pieces together, we're establishing ourselves as humans, we're establishing ourselves as creative beings. And for me, that means finding our creativity, being our true selves, is what's going to lead us forward in the environmental situation that we're in right now that we've talked so much about. It's going to lead us through these places in our communities and our cultures where there's tension, racial tension, religious tension. I really feel as though creativity is at the heart of what's going to make us move forward in a very successful and beautiful way in this world. And being with all of you in this room gives me hope as creative souls in this world, whether you see it or feel it or know it for yourselves. So today our two guest speakers, I'm going to introduce Junhow, who is here. And Junhow, do you want to just say hello real quick? This is going to be a conversation. This is new for us. So,
Testing. Hi, I'm Junhow. I'm an advisor in DUS and one of the coordinators for the Bachelor of Philosophy program. I'm going to make a little correction on my email there. It should be
no.
JZW, not JEW.
I am so sorry. Thank you.
Sorry.
I'm so sorry. How confusing. JZW 328 at PSU. And then Beaonca is here with us. And she is zooming in today. So Joel is working a lot of magic. So thank you, Joel. This is Beaonca.
Hi.
And she is going to get to tell her story. Do you want to introduce yourself, Beaonca?
Yes, hi, I'm Beaonca, and I'm really excited to be here today. And I used to be a student in this class. I was a TA at some point as well, and my entire experience of being in this class has really helped me a lot. So I'm super excited to just be here today and to have a conversation.
Thanks very much. So what we're going to do is explore this idea of creativity and freedom with these two beautiful individuals, and do that sort of through a series of questions, almost like a podcast thing. So I'm going to come over here so I can talk to Beaonca too. So Beaonca, could you first tell us a little bit about your story and about how it is that you came to understand creativity as something that's really valuable in your life?
Yes, so my story really started off pretty much my freshman year. That's when I took this class, and I was in a major breakdown period in my life. I had so many problems with things, like, for example, I was having panic attacks every single day. Like, I had a really difficult time just showing up and trying to function throughout the day. And it seemed like all of the helping professionals and people that I was trying to see about these problems, it felt like there was something deeper that was going on. I had so many questions about my purpose and my identity, what it was that I wanted to do in my life. And a lot of the answers that I had didn't come to me until I went on this journey of self-discovery, where I started learning how to sit with the questions that I had. I started taking time to try to follow my passions and focus more on things that felt like they resonated with me and my soul. And through that experience is where I really started to expand my ideas on creativity. So when I was originally in this class, I remember for the creativity and freedom class, one of the guest speakers who came in to talk, she shared her experiences, and that really resonated with me. And it was from that class that I knew that I wanted to come back here and I wanted to share my own experiences. And I knew that that was going to be something that would be really important to me in my life. And I used to think that creativity was all about, whenever you can create like a very amazing art piece, or when you can create something new out of nothing. But my own experiences have now taught me that creativity is also whenever you can create something out of something that already exists. So I now see it as like any aligned action that you can take to better connect with yourself, your soul, and how you can show up and express yourself with other people. So that's really like my understanding of creativity now.
So I want to put a question out to all of you then. What does creativity typically mean to you? And how might this part of Beaonca's story either resonate with you or be different than your story? So take a moment and talk to your partner about your sense of creativity.
Some of the things that they say for her, I don't know how it's going to pick up.
Okay, yeah. We'll see. It should be through the same, yeah, but thanks. Yeah. So what's going on in your conversations? What are you wrestling with, or what do you want to share out? Joel is going to be typing some of the responses to Beaonca too, so that she can also respond. Anything ruminating?
Hey, Jen. Hi. I feel like I'm really creative with my time because like I have so many things and so many obligations that I have to do. And I'm graduating in less than a month. It's like 3 weeks. And it's just, I have to be really creative with my time.
And how does that show up for you, Avery, when you're doing that? Like, what makes it creative? Like, how do you play with that?
So this goes back to the flexibility discussion, just being like open to change, and you might set out for a plan of attack, but that might change throughout. So just being open and receptive to that.
Sweet, thank you very much. Yeah.
I think when I initially think of creativity, I think about things like the arts and music and how some people have like just an ear for like different noises or different like colors and schemes, and they can just put together like a piece of art that's really creative. But I also think about how there are people who are really creative in just the way that they see the world and how they can experience a lot of negative things or just like traumas and different things and somehow be able to flip them on their heads and just turn it into a positive, not just for themselves, but for other people, and they can change the way other people see the world too.
Sweet, thank you. That's beautiful. Junhow, could you speak a little bit to how you see, it might tie into what you do as your job or what you do as your hobbies, or how do you see creativity flowing in what you do?
Oh, well, if I may, I had some thoughts about just people's comments.
Great, please do, yeah.
I was really taken by what both Eugen and what Beaonca was saying about how there's like a part of creativity that's like within yourself. And like normally when we define creativity, it's like something new or like a different way of looking at things, but we don't think about how like maybe the root of creativity is something that's like really personal to yourself. And I felt like that idea kind of linked to the last comment too about, how a creative act can be helpful to other people. Because, we might also be thinking about creativity as something individual, but as a collective, we could be contributing something individual within ourselves, and then that can be creative for the bigger whole.
Thank you. Yeah. So now, how does that show up for you?
Right. So, I'm coordinator for the Bachelor of Philosophy program, of which Beaonca is a graduate. But it's a make your own major program. So it's if there is something that you're interested in studying and there's no major at Penn State that exists to fulfill that, or doesn't, there's multiple things that you're interested in, but there's not the right fit, then this, it's a potential program for those students. And I think that there's obviously a lot of creativity that goes into that because you're creating your own plan. But there's also a good deal like when you go through a program like that, you have to be willing to change. And that involves like a great deal of flexibility and creativity within each moment. And again, this is for like a make your own major program, but I think that there's a bigger lesson with that, just as like an advisor, like a DUS advisor in general, about looking at what you're learning with a degree of flexibility and be willing to like change as you're going along, because you're changing and you're growing as you're going along. You're going to have new interests, and you're going to be learning things, and you're going to be seeing new connections. So kind of like a flexibility along your path is something that I see in Befilled students, but that I think is important for all students.
What I hear in the underlying message of what you're saying is almost this ability to explore or willingness to open yourself to exploration.
Right.
And that's pretty cool. Beaonca, could you say more about what led to your current understanding of creativity and how that your perspective, maybe through your personal life experiences and self-discovery? Thanks.
Yes. So a lot of this stuff happened just from those breakdown period that I was kind of like talking about from like my freshman year. And I learned how to use those breakdown moments in my life kind of as like the stepping stone in discovering more creativity and freedom in my own life. So kind of to echo something that Junhow just shared, like about the Befilled program, when I was a part of that, I had to be flexible in what I was changing because I knew that I wanted to go through a program to get my certification to become a life coach, but I knew that there wasn't a major at Penn State where I would be able to do that. And I ended up through the Befilled program changing my initial plan that I was going to use to graduate, because I really wanted to explore different ways that I would be able to help people, because the concept of just like helping people in life is so general. Like there's so many different challenges that people encounter. And as I was trying to figure out that journey, I opened myself up to being more creative by learning how I could trust my intuition. Something else that really helped me as well was when I was a TA for this class. I knew that I was so passionate about helping students, and I loved all the conversations that we used to have about like confidence, purpose, how to listen to your own inner voice. And all of those things together, I think, is really what helped me the most on my journey.
Sweet, thank you. So what role does intuition play in this world of creativity and freedom?
For me, it has really been everything. It really has, because like your intuition is a guiding point that every single person has access to. I think sometimes we kind of silence that voice a little bit within ourselves when we're not able to explore it, or we don't recognize that it actually exists. And so that really has been the guiding point in everything that I've been able to do in my own personal life, and like having my own business and now working as a coach, just being able to trust my intuition to lead me to where I need to go. Because being able to, create your own life path, or even like creating your own major, that can cause a lot of fears to come up for you, like a lot of doubts and things that you have. And my intuition has been that point that's kept me really grounded throughout that scary process.
I think that you're speaking to what a lot of students feel, is that sometimes that fear of how we can move forward in the unknown, making space. And so do you have words of wisdom to share with them about that?
Yeah, so I think a lot of students, like how you're saying, Jen, do feel this way, especially when there's periods of uncertainty. And I just want to say here too, it doesn't have to just be uncertainty in regards to your major or your career path. It can be anything. Like I remember when I was a TA, we talked a lot about like some of the relationships that students were in, and like how they felt stressed out about those things, and how they felt like that was impacting other areas of their lives. So it can show up in any area. And so what I would like for you guys to know is the things that you're learning in this class about being able to take a couple moments where you can drop down, where you can focus back on your breath and you can center in. That's something that you always have access to. You can do that in so many different moments of your life, and it can create a lot of different changes. And actually, I believe that that is a way that you can start to access your intuition.
Sweet, thank you. Junhow, would you speak a little bit to how it is that you came to be involved in the Befilled program and why you stay in it? What is it that inspires you to do the work that you're doing here at Penn State?
Oh, well, I mean, I guess I came to it because there was a need.
Right.
There was a need in my department for somebody to help lead this program. But, I think that what I enjoy about it is like the passion for the ideas that the students have. Because, if you're gonna chart your own major or chart your own path, there isn't a structure there to guide you. So I think what I'm inspired by is, students have, again, something like Beaonca that you're passionate about. And I think that every single person, like every single one of you has that. But I think that what Beaonca was saying earlier, like sometimes fear keeps people from following those things, or, you know, sometimes not having those guardrails, it is scary to not follow your intuition, or, you know, sometimes that fear also even keeps you from exploring or looking into something, a potential something further. And, you know, I think that in Befilled, you know, students have taken that step, and that's inspiring. Also, you know, it is an academic program, so, you know, we're engaging deeply with the students' ideas of what they're interested in, and it's very enlightening to have those conversations about ideas. So that's why I love that. Like
so can you share some examples of things, programs that students have created? We've heard about Beaonca's journey to her life coach job her business that she's created. How about some others, examples?
Yeah, so for example, there was this, one of our current soon-to-graduate students started out in physics, and she, you know, wanted to do the sciences, you know, thought she enjoys the sciences, but, you know, also she felt a lot of pressure from her parents to pursue the sciences, but she did enjoy it. But she also really, really enjoyed the arts, and, you know, was dissuaded by her parents to pursue something in the arts. But for herself, she's really interested in both of those things, and was looking for a way to combine them. So her focus is on acoustics, such as like how we're hearing ourselves in this room, and how we can best do that. And actually, that's really a branch of physics. So it's about waves, right? So she decided to combine, you know, that aspect of physics with the creative aspects of music and designing spaces, like just architecturally and stuff like that. So she's looking at that, and her major is called Acoustics and Sound Design. Everybody has to do a capstone project, and her capstone was she is building her own musical instrument. It's a specific kind of musical instrument called a theremin. And if you've never seen this contraption, it's kind of like, it looks like two rods, and you like put your hands between the rods, and you're disrupting electrical signals between the rods, and it creates sound. So she's building her own theremin from scratch. I think it's creative both in how she combined the fields and also in the method she's using to explore that interest in creating this instrument. That's one. Should I do more?
Do one more for us.
Okay. Well, one of our newest students who just joined, who's interested in event management, but there is no major focused specifically on event management. So she's combining classes in event management are in recreation parks and tourism management and hospitality management. So she'll be taking business classes related to that. But also she's looking specifically about the intersection of events and diversity. So how do we create events that are inclusive and that would be meaningful to different kinds of populations? So she's also going to be taking classes in like Asian studies, African American studies, sociology and anthropology. So she, you know, will be building an event as part of the program, but also doing social science research, like perhaps interview or survey research to see how events impact people.
Sweet, thank you. So I'm wondering what questions are coming up for all of you, either for Beaonca or for Junhow. What questions do you have for these fine folks? Why don't you go ahead and talk to your neighbor, and then maybe some things will come up. Talk about what's happened so far in this conversation, and then
Is everything going?
all right. Any questions now coming up for folks?
Well, I was curious, Jen, how you mentioned something about fear of the unknown, and I think sometimes when I'm making decisions, I never want to base them off of fear, but I do want to base them off of a feeling of a little bit of scared or a little bit of being excited, because I think sometimes when I'm challenged by that scaredness, it ends up being a really powerful experience. But what do you think about just fear-based decisions, I guess?
I'm wondering if you're asking about fear keeping you from making certain decisions or keeping you from certain things, or if you're thinking about just I don't know, fear in some other context. I guess in some ways, I'm just riffing here, but fear is part of your intuition, so that could be helpful in making decisions. I think that what Beaonca was speaking to earlier also was how to manage your fears when making decisions and have maybe part of it's helpful, but part of it is that, if it is keeping you from making decisions or something, Beaonca mentioned, and I noticed that we started class with a grounding exercise, right? So that's kind of a way to make some kind of space safe, to kind of manage that fear. I was also wondering, especially in terms of making decisions or deciding on a path, or just being open to ideas in general, how people might be able to create spaces where they can manage that fear and be open to their creativity more. And I think that there are some ways where, just at the individual level to feel that you have freedom to, engage your ideas and imagine like things that you haven't imagined before, because you are safe in your own space, you know, to think about all the different possibilities. And like, you might be fearful of doing something or other, but you are free to like think about them, to explore them. It doesn't mean that you're necessarily taking that step, but I feel like that could be one way, again, to feel safe, that you're just exploring, that it's just like your ideas for now, because in your mind, you know, you're free to do what you want, and you shouldn't be scared in your intellectually in your ideas.
Thank you.
I don't know if that answered your question, but.
Yeah. Beaonca, do you have anything to add to that, or any other take?
No, I actually, I agree with everything that Junhow said, and fear is a part of your intuition. And that's the thing, like when something is really important to you, that fear is just like an indication of how important like that thing is to you. It doesn't have to mean that it's a bad thing just because you feel fearful. And sometimes we can think that it's a bad thing because it makes us feel uncomfortable. But like having that uncomfortability just shows you how important that thing is to you. And I think like even looking back at my own life and looking back at like the clients and people that I've helped, they usually do feel very fearful when they are accessing their intuition and they're starting to listen to their soul and their own inner voice and focusing on things that they really love or things that they're interested in exploring. So it doesn't have to be a bad thing. And on the other side of your fear is like that excitement, you know?
Yeah, that makes sense. It's the dualism thing, the good and the bad. Is the excitement the only good thing, or is also fear can also be a good thing?
I just had a question about how common it is for students to like make their own major, and if you think it's starting to become more common as we like branch out.
I mean, our program is very small. We only have a few graduates every year. And there are a number of other make your own major programs that are particular to specific colleges, so you guys could potentially think about those as well. Those are for if, like, for example, there's one in liberal arts called Letters, Arts, and Sciences. So if your focus is specifically in liberal arts, that might be a good fit. But the Bachelor of Philosophy, Befilled, is like across all colleges. So there are also other people in those majors as well. I don't think that it's common, like statistically, given there are so many Penn State students, right? I think that in our modern world, there is a need to be, just like the way that the world and the economy is going, like people are increasingly entrepreneurial, people are increasingly needing to be flexible. I think because jobs are, you know, unfortunately increasingly precarious and unstable. So I think that there, you know, is a need to, you know, be able to take initiative and be flexible again, and like move in different directions. So I think that these individualized things are more and more relevant because of that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Thank you.
So I had a question for Beaonca. You mentioned in the beginning of class that you went through a lot your first semester, so I was just wondering how exactly did you stay motivated to like make it to the finish line?
Can you please repeat your question? I'm sorry, it was like muffled a little bit towards the end.
How did you stay motivated given everything that you went through in the beginning?
Oh, I stayed motivated really just from being able to self-reflect. Like I am the kind of person, like when I lack a lot of motivation, if I'm able to write my thoughts down and I can get a lot of my fears out and things like that, and I can look back at them, I start to realize like how irrational some of my thinking and my thoughts can be, and how I'm just so focused in my head about certain things that aren't like actually true in reality, or they're not things that are like likely to happen. And so that has helped me a lot in staying motivated. My spirituality has helped me as well. I'm not tied to any specific religion or certain ideologies, but I do love learning about the soul. I love any kind of way where I can better express myself in that way, and that has helped actually keep me motivated. And another thing as well too has just been making sure that I'm surrounding myself with people who are supportive of my own self-exploration. And I think that that can make a huge difference whenever we're feeling like unmotivated to do certain things, or if we're feeling fearful or even discouraged about trying certain things. You know, your circle can help you a lot with that. Just surrounding yourself with people who allow you to just sit and just be who you are with them.
Thank you. Any other questions coming up right now? All right, Junhow. Yeah. Oh,
Yeah,
wait,
we got one more
I'm sorry,
over here.
there's one more. Sorry. Go ahead.
My question is kind of broad, but I was wondering if you had any advice about how to keep creativity a priority. Just because I feel like in my life, society is sort of pushing me to believe that creativity is a waste of time and a waste of resources, and that I should feel like childish or embarrassed when I do want to be creative.
Yeah, thank you. Did you hear that question, Beaonca? Yeah.
Yes. So I would say the biggest thing that has helped me when I've struggled with that, and like when I was working with other people who struggled with the same thing, I think it really comes from like expanding your initial ideas of like what it means to be creative. Like you can find creativity in so many things. It doesn't have to just, you know, look one way of like coming up with like creative projects or things like that. Like you can find creativity in, you know, the way that you go about having conversations with other people. It can be in things like, you know, like how you mentioned, just things that connect you more with like, you know, that childlike side of yourself. So I think it really lies in expanding and reframing your concept of creativity, and then just making sure that you take some time every day to do that, even if it's just, you know, 5 to 10 minutes of something like singing or something like that. Like that's how I really started out on my own journey. Or say if you just take some time to allocate certain time and blocks throughout your day to doing things that make you happy, things that you want to explore, things that you feel called to doing. And it really is a practice. And the more that you do that, the more that you listen to it, the easier it is to make that thing a priority into your life.
I'd also like to speak to this just for a minute, because I explore this, or I struggled just before I was asked to start helping with BiSci 3. I was ready to jump into having my own business, making jewelry, doing knitting, teaching classes, being creative as my job. And then this became my job, and I knew that this was where I should be. So I put all of that on the back burner. Not all of that. I put some of that on the back burner in order to be able to do this. And yet, there's still times that I really miss that creative side. It doesn't fit into my schedule as much as I think that I need it, you know, as much as my mind and my body and my creative soul needs that. And so it comes out in other ways. It comes out in playful walks with my dogs, or taking a new path. It might come out in the pictures that I choose for the slideshows in this class. So my creativity has just expanded into ways that are less typical or less thought of as creative. until I, get to sit down in the evening and pick up my knitting or my jewelry making or whatever it is. That also brings me joy. So finding, just like Beaonca said, those ways that are the non-traditional ways of creativity. Asking good questions is a fun way to experience creativity. So now, Junhow has a question for Beaonca.
Yes, I have a question for Beaonca. I was wondering if you could talk a little bit more about your Befilled journey and the Capstone, because you experienced some challenges during that time, and I feel that it's like in theme with the class. You had to come up with like kind of a creative solution to your capstone. So I wonder if you could tell more of that story.
Yes. So when I was going to do my capstone project, I spent a year coaching students at this school and beyond. And I set up these little interviews that I had with them to get these students. And then I coached them for that year's process. And then I was going to do like a traditional research paper talking about life coaching, what I found about it. I was going to talk about what I learned from my certification program. And then I was going to also talk about emerging adulthood. And it's like a whole nother field of research. And then on top of those two things, I also was going to share the results from what happened when I coached those students. And so it really was going to look like a traditional paper. But at that point in my life, my health like really kind of like took a turn for the worse. And it was crazy too, because it happened all of a sudden. Like I felt perfectly fine. And then one day I literally woke up and I wasn't, like I couldn't move my body. And I found out that I had lupus and also I have epilepsy. So I started having seizures, and just the whole experience of my health taking such a huge hit in that way affected my ability to, sit and be able to create a paper. And so what I ended up doing was I created a podcast where I could sit and I talked about my experience, and I really had to shift the initial way that I was going to do things. But I'm very grateful that I was able to, create that podcast, because it was hard for me to have to sit there and like think and write a paper. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of like brain fogs, but I was experiencing those a lot because of how my brain was affected because of my health. And so just being able to, be creative and figure out another way that I could share the results was helpful for me. And I was able to meet myself with where I was, because my brain was not at the point where I could like sit and physically like type a paper. Like that just wasn't going to work for me. But I could speak and share thoughts and just say whatever came up for me versus having to like plan something out and then construct sentences around them.
So we are, there again is the information. Actually, would you go up one more time to that? Thanks. For Beaonca, and remember Junhow's, he fixed it. You're amazing. Contact information, Beaonca's website is there. The blog, wait, I'm gonna give you your pack back question. Hold on just a second. And so that's there. And then now, one other announcement is that we are going to, I sent out a pack back announcement, Canvas announcement about feedback. The SRTEs are open. And then also there's a Google form for any feedback that you have about this class. And both of those are extraordinarily helpful to me and to the biology department and to Shavers Creek and to all these levels of people. that want to know how things are going. So I am really grateful for any feedback that you can offer in both of those ways. I know that it takes your time, and I believe that it's time well spent because I take those things very seriously. And now, your pack-back question for this week is this. Tell a story about a time when you expressed your authentic self. How did you know you did? How did that feel? And I hope that you do. Have a beautiful day.